It was late spring, and I was on the Trans-Siberian Express, traveling from Moscow to Central Siberia. That's where I met Professor Tivikov. He lives in Novokuznetsk, the city I was going to visit. I asked him what it was like in this part of Russia.
Здесь особенно много каменного угля. Потому и
It
называют.
has some of the largest mines in the world.
По своим запасам он
It's
считается
the
одним из
equivalent of Ruhr Valley in Germany
и его аналогами
or
могут
Pittsburgh in America.
бассейн в Германии или район Питтсбурга в Соединенных Штатах.
Novokuznetsk in the Kuzbass is only halfway across Russia, yet Arisha-Voznесенska's train journey will take 3 days. The city is on the banks of the river Ton. Surrounded by mountains full of coal, iron ore, and limestone.
Наша класса стрелки работает по путейце, на выходе путейцы по второму пути главному.
Very few people lived in this part of Russia before the 1900s. It was like the American Wild West, a new frontier for Russian traders and farmers.
Мой прадедушка со своей семьей пришел с Украины.
My great-grandfather walked here from the Ukraine in western Russia with his family and a cow at the promise of free land to farm. It took him 3 years.
With the arrival of the railway at the beginning of this century, millions of people would migrate to Siberia. At first, they were convicts and political prisoners, forced to work upon the railways and build factories. Whole forests were cleared to erect giant steel mills. Now 6 million people live in the central Siberian region of the Kuzbass. 500,000 of them live here, near the river Ton in the city of Novokuznetsk, one of the busiest stops on the Trans-Siberian Railway.
I said goodbye to Professor Tivikov. I had an appointment to keep at one of the biggest coal mines in Russia, just outside the city.
Novokuznetsk is surrounded by the coal-rich Alatau Mountains. Half the world's coal reserves are in Russia, and 1/3 comes from the Kuzbass. Nagornaya mine is 30 minutes from the city.
The mine foreman is Yuri Cherny. He would look after me during my visit. We started where his men collect their safety equipment. It takes 40 minutes to get to the coal face, 200 meters below ground, and I must admit I was a little nervous.
After the revolution of 1917, Lenin set out to change the Soviet Union into a modern industrial nation. Coal would power the factories. 70 years later, the tens of thousands of miners in the Kuzbass went on strike to begin the political change that led to the end of the Soviet Union. Nagorno miners bring nearly 1 million tons of coal to the surface each year. The state used to subsidize mining companies. Now they have to find their own markets. But there is no cash to create safer working conditions, update old technology, or pay the miners who sometimes go for months without a paycheck.
Развернули человеческое сознание на...
Before the great democratic changes in our country, you couldn't choose your profession.
Не все, конечно.
You went where there was an opportunity.
Отец и много, значит, дяди.
All my relatives,
Они все
grandfather,
работают.
father,
Поэтому выбор
uncles,
профессии
worked
уже
underground as miners.
сам по себе уже был предопределен.
Most of the coal from the mountains of the Kuzbass travels by rail to other parts of Russia. It goes to the thermal power plants that heat Moscow, to the steel-producing regions of Magnitogorsk in the Ural Mountains, and east to Komsomolsk. Some coal will go to the Donbass in the Ukraine, or to Karaganda in Kazakhstan. Coal that stays in the Kuzbass will be used by the steelworks in the center of Novokuznetsk. Novokuznetsk is a free market zone. The government no longer regulates the economy. Stalls and markets are springing up all over the city, where people are selling things they grow or make themselves. This can be the main source of income for the 2/3 of people who live below the poverty line, especially the old who receive a pension of only £12 a month. Kuznetsk Metallurgical Factory employs 27,000 men and women on a site the size of a small town. Nothing much has changed inside the gates since the factory was built in the 1940s. There is no day or night in the factory. Iron and steel making never stops. When the minerals have melted, The molten pig iron is ready to go to another part of the factory. Some pig iron will become iron ingots. The rest will go to the steel works.
Everything looked so old-fashioned and dangerous to me, and I was surprised to see so many women working in such a place. I went to the control room to ask Vadim Moshkin, a metallurgical engineer, why they weren't using more modern technology.
Our factory is trying to convert to more modern technology, but financially it's difficult. We're having to do it gradually. There is no money because the government no longer subsidizes us, and our clients aren't paying up.
Heavy industry all over the world faces these problems. It's the economic upheaval in the new Russia that makes things even more difficult here. Despite the difficulties, they still make some of the best rail tracks in the world at the Kuznetsk metallurgical factory.
Сталь в работе главная деталь. Трактор это сталь, танкер это сталь, провод это сталь, провод это сталь. Поезда и стали, и мосты и стали. Перья у поэтов это тоже сталь. Поезда и стали, и мосты и стали. Перья у поэтов это тоже сталь.
All the tracks in the Soviet Union were made here. The factory also makes ball bearings for the motor industry, as well as rods and beams for construction. They leave the Kuzbass for factories and building sites all over Russia on those famous Kuznetsk rails. The busy Russian railways connect populated European Russia with the industrial regions of central Siberia and on to Vladivostok on the Pacific coast. Railways allowed industry to grow quickly in the Soviet Union. In Novokuznetsk, a heavy price is now being paid for that growth. Local people call this the Siberian crematorium. Industrial pollution has so poisoned the air and water that people's lives are 8 years shorter here than in the rest of Russia.
We were born in Novokuznetsk, and today we shall speak about Novokuznetsk and all the things which are connected with our home city. So what is our city famous for? Can you tell me, please?
I'm sure that our city is famous for industry, sportsmen, and traditions.
Traditions.
And
Anything else, Elena?
I think for our bad quality.
Bad ecology, so we shall speak about it a bit later. Yes, Sveta, anything else?
Our factories are making our ecology bad. They are making our air dirty. It's one of the biggest problems of our town.
I want to say that we must protect our nature now, when we are children, because when we will grow up, it will be too late to protect our nature.
Some people don't know that how it is important to protect our nature and to make our air and rivers clean.
On the weekend, the mine foreman Yuri Chernych and his son Anton escape the choking air of Novokuznetsk and head for their country house at Dacha. The Chernichs' dacha is 20 minutes from Novokuznetsk, in a fertile valley which remains much as it was before industry came to the Kuzbass. The Chernichs don't come to their dacha just to relax. About 1/3 of Russia's vegetable production, as well as milk and eggs, come from these private plots.
So what do you usually do here?
On the weekends, I often come to the dacha to my grandmother. I help her with the rubbish, litter, and other things. I help her to feed the chickens and to make the sauna. I like to have a sauna because it's good for the health.
I was sad to leave the country and go back to Novokuznetsk, where I was to catch a 5-hour flight home to Moscow.